Welcome to
What?
The game.
Me.
To me.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of What the Game Means to Me. I'm your host, of course, Jelani Brown, and I have a very, very special guest with me today, legend, Mr. Denny Lennon from Sports Stories with Mr. Denny Lennon. So how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Jelani. I appreciate you calling me Mr. I don't know that I've earned that, but I've had 40 years of coaching, so I do have a lot of young people that call me Coach.
Yeah, I was like, I'm actually, I guess one thing that's kind of related to, I'm just now not just now. I've been coaching for about 3 years. I coach developmental basketball, so I've been getting into that. It's a little weird because like I just turned 24, but they're like not that much younger than me, like
Right,
maybe 6-7 years apart. So it's like I still kind of feel like I'm one of them, but hearing that coach or Mr. or whatever is just gotta get used to it.
Well, like I started when I was about 19, 20 years old or so, but now I have actual grandfathers that'll go, "Hey, Coach, what's up?"
Oh yeah, stuff like even like the parents and stuff. It gets a little taken, I walk by like, "Hey, Coach, how you doing?" I'm like, "Good." And I'm just like not thinking they talking to me because I still kind of feel like a player myself. So
It's an honor. It's an honor to earn that. So good luck to you, buddy.
Appreciate it. But again, like I said, I got my guest on, Mr. Denny Lennon. Really excited about a conversation that we're going to have today. First question I always typically ask my guests when they come on, the name of the podcast is What the Game Means to Me. So just in general, like what do sports mean to you, or what have they meant to you in your life? And just kind of like where did that love from sports come from?
Right. Yeah, there's never been a time in my life that sports wasn't there and wasn't the, like the central theme. I grew up in a really big family. I'm one of like 60 cousins in a particular generation, and I'm the youngest of 7 in my own family. And a lot of us grew up in the same community in Venice, California. And so there was always a built-in group of cousins that could get games going and play, let alone my school that I went to, the St. Mark's School, was only a block away. So you had your friends from there, had all my cousin friends. So we could always get games going either in my front yard, backyard, or on the street. And so sports was always something. And for whatever reason, Jelani, when I grew up, I was just affixed to a couple of things, and basketball was pretty much the one that was up front and center, but it was the Lakers back in those days that I was super into. But in particular, UCLA basketball, I was really into it because it was at the end of the John Wooden era. I was born in 64 when he won his first championship, and I was really pumping and playing sports in 75 when he won his last one. So all of that was really central and important to me, and I was fortunate too. I had a lot of people around me who took me to games and encouraged me playing sports and so forth. Yeah,
of course. Yeah, similar. Of course, UCLA is definitely cemented with all their championships. I'm a UNC fan.
Sure.
Tar Heels. So kind of same thing. I guess when I started growing up, there was like, they just had a lot of prominent players, obviously, that played with them. I guess when I was born in '96.
You had a good time.
Yeah, like Vince Carter and all the other, like Antoine Jameson and all these other people. And my whole family's from North Carolina, so it kind of just caught on. But also, I guess we share the little similarity about the cousins thing. I grew up around my cousins a lot, so we was always front yard, backyard baseball, football, with the neighborhood kids, even with my friends as well. I'd invite them over and stuff, and pretty much like you said, I always was able to get a game going, no matter what it may be. So it's really, really cool, really cool. Like
when I couldn't get a game, I would coach the little kids on the block. I'd coach them up so that they could play well enough to round out the game. And I'm pretty sure like that's where I got my start. Eventually, what would be a 40-year career coaching was because I was coaching up the little kids because I needed a few more to fill in.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's like perfect story, great story. Kind of segue into I guess my next question too. You say I know you've had a lot of different positions in the sports industry. I know you've coached, you've done broadcasting, all those type of things. I guess when and where did you, know that you wanted to pursue a career in sports? And did it kind of come naturally, or did you go to school for it? Kind of how did that come about?
Yeah, it did come naturally. Even going back to when I was 8 years old, I was fortunate that my godfather was friends with the Laker coach.
Oh, wow.
So I used to get to go to the local LMU, which was Loyola Marymount, and sit and watch them practice. And so I sat there and would watch, it was a team with Jerry West and Gail Goodrich and Wilt Chamberlain and all of them. and it was so cool to watch that team that eventually won the championship, right? But more importantly, after we go hang out in the Marina Towers, what was then called the Marina Towers, where Bill Sharman, the legendary coach, he was also legend in a lot of ways. He was the general manager of the Lakers after, where he lived. And I would listen to the adults talk, and I'd listen to him in particular talk. And I think that's my first remembrance of like somebody that was like a coach. And I remember being so impressed that he actually coached Jerry West. He actually was the coach of Wilt Chamberlain. Like I was like, wow, you know, like that's something. But, you know, when you're little, your plan is to play in the NBA. It's not until, you know, you hit a certain point where you go, okay, you know, maybe I'm not good enough. And so, you know, I was playing junior college basketball and I tore up my leg. And so I had a decision to make, whether to sit there and redshirt with no money or to come home and start working. And I chose the latter. And I came back to the school that I actually went to, St. Mark's School in Venice. And who was my 8th grade teacher had now become the principal. And so she said she'd love to hire me. And so she handed me the reins, and she's been, you know, my greatest mentor, Sister Martha Raleigh. I got to shout her out because she's the best. And so she gave me the opportunity, and I started coaching, you know, doing PE and coaching and watching the yards at recess. And that's where that started. And then my cousins and I, we started this. We like to play volleyball too. So we started a volleyball tournament in my own backyard because we have big backyards. And within years, Jelenia grew to 5 backyards and 3 front yards, all on one block in Venice. Oh, wow. And we would block the street off, and about 1,000 people would come and just blew up. And from that, I got identified. And so they picked me up on the Women's Pro Beach Volleyball Tour. And I started going from city to city. You know, I asked Sister, could I leave half day Friday so I could get to some city, do a promotional appearance, and then announce all day Saturday, Sunday, back at work on Monday. And I did that for a number of years. So that's kind of where the broadcasting thing started. And then all of the coaching started just like that. And slowly but surely, everything grew, including my, you know, affiliation with the Amateur Athletic Union.
Yep. According to say, you kind of touched on it a little bit. That was actually my next question about kind of how you got into the backyard beach, you know, volleyball, because I know you founded it in 1983. Am I correct?
That's right.
Yep, founded in 1983. I just kind of like where I guess where that love for volleyball come from, and kind of like where the idea and pursuit to, you know, kind of come up with that venture come from. It seems like it grew pretty quickly.
Yeah, it sure did. My family was, you know, I had an uncle. His name is Jimmy Lennon. He was a famous boxing announcer, and his son carries on as his name now, Jimmy Lennon Jr. So that's my cousin. And so from him, and as well as others, uncles of mine, the promotional idea, the let's make this a big deal, was always something in my family. So when we started that backyard volleyball tournament, we made sure to have a PA system, to announce everybody, to hand out nicknames, hand out awards.
Yeah, doing it big. Yeah.
Do it big. Yeah, that's exactly right. So when we did that got a lot bigger. And so then, you know, from there, I had 2 other aunts that lived on the same block. So their backyards were secured. And then it was just a matter of convincing everybody else. So that grew, you know, but out of that, like I said, my affiliation with Pro Beach Volleyball grew. But in particular, one guy came up to me that I knew from Catholic school coaching that said, hey, I work AAU baseball. You want to do AAU beach volleyball for kids? Because there's no program to teach younger people how to play the sport of beach volleyball, right? They always had to play in adult tournaments. So it really, it only allowed a few of them to break through.
Exactly,
So we started a comprehensive program for junior players, anywhere from 18 and under down all the way to 10 and under. And from what we started with just 32 kids on a beach in 1994, it has grown into a national tour and program that has, I don't know, 100,000 or so. And that is, you know, spawned high school beach volleyball, college volleyball, beach volleyball. And of course, you know, the Olympics have grown to much bigger levels. So we had a significant part in developing the junior side of that. So that's kind of how it all came. One thing came after the other. And, you know, I admire that you're 24 years old and you're getting started into this, you know, discipline right away, right? And that you do the work that you need to do to get better. And that's just what we were doing too. You know, you did the next thing and you did it the best you could.
Yep, exactly. It's all about, you know, first, I guess, getting your foot out or getting your foot in the door, doing what you got to do, or getting out there first off. And like you said, just trying to get better and better, progress things to new heights. And I respect that. I like that. Yeah, same thing. Like I said, I talked a little bit off here, but I just started this in May, and luckily, like I said, was able to find you. You was able to reach out, and then I was able to, you know, get on with you. and talk sports. I love doing that at all times, and just learning more about people and their stories and paths. Because I know you got a lot of cool stories that we're soon going to get into. So
yeah, sure.
And so you kind of segued into it again, talking about the AAU. But another thing I know you founded was Lennon Sports, and of course, like you said, you were the co-founder of the AAU sector of Junior Beach Volleyball. So I guess kind of like what like how was it starting those two projects? Like we kind of just like said, like what was the I guess the initial point to make you kind of jump in and do it, and just kind of like have it grow to as big as it's grown. What was that inspiration? With that?
I think so some of that's like a lot of people do things because they need to, and I grew up in a big family. We weren't by any means poor, but we weren't rich either. So there wasn't any real opportunity to just kind of find your way. You had to make your way. And that was, that's just something that all of us just grew up doing. We had a lot of love and community built in with our family, and certainly our extended family in Venice. And then I, have a bigger family being the head coach and the athletic director at St. Mark. So all of that allowed me to be able to build these projects. So whether that was the AAU Beach, but Lennon Sports came out of the idea of now, having a real entity that oversaw the Backyard Championships, that oversaw, my involvement with the AAU Beach program, and that also allowed me to run like camps and clinics so that my kids at St. Mark's could get better in sports. And so so that's kind of how that came. And one just grew out of the other, that grew out of the other. And you just do the work. You just do the work.
Exactly. Yeah. With that too, like I guess what made you decide like I guess junior sports programs, like because I know like we'll get into it a little later, but you've coached young girls basketball team at I think your former high school, and then the Junior Beach Volleyball and everything. Like where I guess does that love I guess working with kids come from?
Yeah, I guess part of it was what I told you was I had to round up some kids to make games go on my yard. And so then I found, I had an aptitude for it. And also I know my games when I played and I was 8 or 10 or 12 years old, they meant as much to me then as my games meant as a varsity football player later in life, right? Every game is super important, as are those like practices, as are every part of your involvement. And so I never lost acknowledging that was important to young people, no matter how young they were. And so you coach accordingly. That doesn't mean you're trying to drive them like you would an 18-year-old, but it means acknowledging that it's important to them means it should be important to you, and you should give them the best information you can to let them succeed. And so that, and then just really diving in and studying the work of John Wooden, where I realized it was more than just winning. As a matter of fact, he rarely used that word. He was much more about, success and being the best you can be, right? So when I started to read his books and learned that, it made it easy to provide the same information and philosophy to a 12-year-old as it was to an 18-year-old, as it was to, being an athletic director for a 24-year-old coach. And in all of those things, the same kind of philosophy was working. And so, that all worked together for me. And that's why junior programs, high school programs, whatever it was, they all grew accordingly.
Exactly. I guess real quick before I still go into another topic, what would I guess your advice be to maybe young coaches out there, even for me as well? Kind of like what is the qualities that we should be like having or looking for when we're working with these young kids? Because sometimes, like you said, like we were just talking about John Wooden, it's like not always focusing on winning, but focusing on like what their likes and interests are in the sport, and having them grow and kind of mold them into like I guess just growing young adults and everything like that. So kind of like what is just like the qualities or like just any advice you might have for coaches that may want to get into sports and coaching younger generations? You
touched on some of it already, which is being interested and acknowledging their life. Like a good story would be, why did the best player in the country, then Lou Alcindor, eventually Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, why did he come out and come from Power Memorial in New York City? Every right wanted him. Why did he come to Los Angeles? And what was it that made him want to play for Coach Wooden? And his recruiting trip, never once did they talk about basketball. Coach Wooden understood that was a highly intelligent kid. And he talked to him about literature and philosophy, about what he wanted to do, and nothing to do about basketball. He said, certainly, we got that. You're a good player. Look, let's feed the mind. And so that was Coach Wooden acknowledging that he was more than a basketball player. And that's an important lesson for all coaches to learn, is that when you're working with these young people, or you're working with anybody, that it's more than what's just right out in front of you. And so that you got to acknowledge that. I've had positions at really high-end schools with kids that could afford $40,000 and $50,000 a year tuition. And I've had positions with schools that had to be funded on a grant, because those kids could only play, and when it started to get dark, you had to get them home, and then they had to stay below the line of the windows because their homes were dangerous and they didn't have food there. So I've worked with all levels, and yet you realize that all young people have issues and problems and aspirations, and they also have families and community. And so when you learn to be open to who they are as a person, you'll be so much better as a coach. One of the great things I like, Jelani, and I wish for you and anybody that's a young coach, is when I run into my ex-players now, and my ex-players are anywhere from young 50s to 15, right? Yeah. They generally want to say hello and want to relive memories with me. I spent my first year yelling a little too much, coaching like I was coached. Yeah. I quickly learned I didn't like it, and it was a Band-Aid. Yep. It wasn't really fixing and making the team better. And when I learned to work with them, still disciplined, still moving them forward, still trying to win championships, but having respect for them, working with them, not making them work for me. When I did that, everything changed. All of the expectations that they had were their own, in line with our team. And now I can run into these people and feel good because I helped them and not punish them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's what's important. And that's not easy when the other coach is yelling at their players and getting some short-term results, and you're losing the game. You feel like you got to yell at yours to pick it up. Yep. That's not easy, but got to be true to yourself and know that your best interest is the best interest of your players.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and I'm kind of learning that day by day as well with maybe some of the older coaches that I coach with now, because when I first started out, kind of like you said, I felt like I was coaching the way I used to be coached, which I guess the area I'm in probably isn't best fit for that, and the kids that I work with probably isn't best fit for that either. So kind of had to learn, talk with other coaches. I have a good coach that's still with me now, Coach Merritt, and another one as well. But yeah, both of them, just their guidance and them having worked with the kids before, and kind of me just learning, picking up off them. Pretty much everything you just said is kind of what I'm learning and pretty much doing as a process. And I even got to keep that in mind tonight because I actually have a game at 6 o'clock. So.
That's it, baby. Game day. It's exciting. Yeah. And just by the thought of you doing the work like you are right now for this, it shows, just me who just met you, shows me that you're probably a thoughtful person, that you're not rash, you're not hot-tempered and stuff. So there's no reason to use those, traits. You want to be yourself, but your best self when you coach. Exactly. And so just by that reasoning and then convincing your players it's in their best interest and the team's best interest, that's the best way. And so, you got the traits. Now it's just a matter of honing those skills.
Exactly. I appreciate that. I guess say a little bit off of me, segue back into more about your discussion and your stories. I wanted to kind of talk about, I guess, one thing before I talk about maybe a lot of the people that you've gotten to meet along the way with your venture, your podcast. Like I said, I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but you've had your hand in a lot of different things: coaching, athletic director, promotions, all that type of things. I guess I just wanted you to kind of just tell me a little bit more about each of those positions. Also, I know you was a play-by-play analyst as well. But if you could just tell us a little bit more about those positions and just kind of how are you able to balance those along with, during those times, I know you were starting up these different projects the AAU sector, Junior Beach Volleyball, and then Lennon Sports, and then, your backyard Venice Beach championships as well.
All of those.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that's interesting, and you'll find this out, is that the most important thing I did was none of those. It was raising a family, right? So as things started to happen, then all of a sudden, married now, I got a boy 28 and a girl 25, who are off on their lives now. But while that was happening, that's always priority number one. And it was such an honor to be able to coach them on teams and to see them play with other coaches and see them perform and do well and be good teammates. Like that was the greatest thing I did, right? But along the way, promoting events, just came naturally. And, whether that was my family or just the environment I was in, that was part of it. But like once I learned how to put one of my events on television, because I had done some announcing on television when I'd announced the introductions of Women's Pro Beach and stuff. So once I kind of learned how that worked, the best thing for the budget was to hire myself as the play-by-play guy, right? Because I worked for zero, and so that was big, right? So then I just threw myself in there and learned how to do that. And then once I had those out, other people started to hire me to be a play-by-play or an analyst. And so that's kind of how that worked. It was just like not being afraid to take that next leap, and then the kind of just like to do it. And so all of that was happening at the same time. And then you could be the greatest coach, but if you don't have the players, best laid plans aren't going anywhere. Exactly. And so I had really good people around me, some that came up that played for me, that understood what it was to be in a team project. Others that I saw that I said, you know what, I like that kid. Or you know what, that guy Jelani, he thinks, he prepares. And I try to bring those kind of people into the fold so that they're helping me doing the promotions and stuff, because they're going to be you to your frontline customer, right? Like if I got a problem over here and it's a big event and I'm dealing with this, I'm like, Jelani, go, right? And I got to trust that you can go do it. And so I lined myself up with good people. And so that allowed, I think, all of those ventures to grow.
Of course. Yep. Like I said, like you said in the beginning, number one is family. Number one, putting family first and then having them in your corner. They're always in your corner. I think pretty much you're slated to succeed in anything. And then also, like you said, making sure you surround yourself with the right people and bring them into your circle to always, help you grow.
Yep.
Perfect formula, perfect recipe. It's like next thing I wanted to kind of ask and get into was the different. Well, one, like I said, you have your own sports podcast where you guys do blogs, YouTube videos, and all of that. And I've checked a lot of them out, and I really enjoy you guys' production. What was I guess your inspiration for starting your own podcast, Sports Stories with Denny Lennon?
So, I'd been my daughter was moving back about 13 years ago or something like that, 14 years ago. My daughter was on her way to go to high school. I was out around the country doing a lot of beach volleyball events and also developing some things, just traveling too much. My boy was going in about to a senior year of high school at Loyola High School. And I was missing my kids a lot because, I was getting back from most stuff, but man, I was putting myself in a bad position taking red eye flights all the time, all that kind of stuff. And so there was an opportunity that opened at a high-end kind of private girls' school in Brentwood, west side of Los Angeles. And this opportunity presented itself to be the athletic director there at a really underperforming all-girls school. They're middle school and upper school, and they didn't win anything. And so it's a great opportunity to go in there. And my daughter went in ninth grade to the school at that point. So I went there. We got things turned around pretty quick. And within, 6-7 years, we're challenging for some state championships. We're like right in the heart of it, whether that was track or whether that was softball, volleyball, whatever it was. Sport, we got really good, right? And so then it got to the point where I think it was overwhelming for the school's administration that they were like, what the heck? Like, why are our girls, having to go to Sacramento? Wait a second. Why did the season just extend itself another month? And we're like, because we're in the state finals.
Yeah, you're winning.
Right? And so there started to be, and I just went, you know what? I've always had this idea. And so my administrative assistant at that time, her name is Marley Rice, and she used to play for me back in the day, 2-time Western League MVP, girls basketball, Venice High, baby. All right, 20 a game in high school. Right?
That is solid.
You met her. She's been communicating with you. So I was like, hey, I got an idea, and of course I talked to my wife, Christine, and I was like, I'm going to, per usual, I'm going to need your help too. And I was like, let's just do it. Like, let's go all out, all in. And it was like, I had some other offers to be an athletic director at other schools, steady pay, health benefits, that kind of thing. Yeah. I took the road that was more difficult, but more fulfilling. And so and my kids are out of the house. They're on their lives. I'm like, let's do it. And so that's what we did. And July, we're still working for $0. However, we've gained an audience. We have a lot of content and a lot of contacts, and things are really starting to crack, right? Things are really starting to happen. And it took us a while to get to this point, maybe, 6, 7, 8 months, 9 months, but we're getting to a point now where we're getting recognition. I got Jerry West coming in next week. I got Jeff Pearlman, the author of Three Ring Circus, coming in. I mean, when you're dealing with people like that, like all of a sudden I was like, well, I just heard him on Colin Cowherd's show. Okay, so I feel like, we're getting somewhere, and we're building our own universe, our own group of people that are consistent to our program, and then bringing in some of the bigger names here and there, but we're still trying to do the same premise, which is unique and uplifting sports stories, right? Unique and uplifting sports stories, because I want to get into this in order to hopefully raise people's ideas and raise people's enthusiasm about what life can be.
Exactly. And congratulations on getting those different guests to come on. Kind of like, this is kind of like what you just said, like, working towards, getting those type of guests. I guess kind of that's how I kind of felt having you on today.
Thank you. That's nice of you.
Yeah, of course. So, like I said, we're both just working. And like I said, I checked out a lot of you guys' content, watched a lot of different of you guys' YouTube videos, and that's kind of like the next thing I wanted to get into. Was one or two of them that I saw. The first one, the Norm Bass interview.
Bam! Best one we got, man.
Yep, that was a pretty good one. The first, you said post World War II African American to play both professionally football and baseball. How did you lock in that interview? I think when I was listening, you guys met at a YMCA.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know if you didn't realize it was him, or he already thought you knew who he was, something like that. So both. So I kind of just talk about like that interview, things that you might have learned, how that interview came about.
I learned an awful lot. Okay, here's what I learned first. The guy's hilarious, and I love people that are funny. And he is really funny because he constantly, like, I would go to what's the senior pool kind of. And then that's where I just kind of warm up for a second, and then I go swim some laps. So we'd always be over there. And so I just struck up a conversation with him. And here's what I noticed right away. The guy is so funny. Like, he's got a thing about everybody. He's giving him a little bit of a hard time, right? But everybody knows him, and everybody loves when he comes around. I also noticed he was dealing, with something, man. At the time, he's like 80 years old, and he had a hard time with one of his arms. And then I'd see him in the locker room, and it took him an excruciatingly long time just to like dress and undress and stuff. But I respected him so much because he did it every day, man. He never missed, because I don't miss. I just always do my workouts no matter what, right? It frees my mind. And so I was like, I really respected this guy, not just like ever taking a day off, right? And also he's funny. So, and then one day I just saw a flyer, and it said what you described him. And I was like, what the? And I asked him, he goes, oh, you got to look me up. You got to look me up, man. And I was like, okay. And I did. And I found out his older brother was Dick Bass, who was a running back for the Rams, all-pro running back. And then him, and those two were like legends out of Vallejo, Northern California area, kind of not far from Oakland, right? And then they eventually came this way when Dick Bass made his way to Los Angeles Rams, is when they housed out down here. But in the day, man, they were running the joint up in Vallejo. They were all around athletes. They played every sport, and they were the best ones at their high school and everything, including Norm. Norm could throw, in the 90s when he was in high school as a pitcher, he hit the furthest ball in baseball, and nobody ever saw anything like that. He was the Shrine MVP. He took the North, came down and beat the South. He wasn't the MVP. They picked the white kid who had a bigger name. Norm would tell me this, and I was cracking up. I was like, you know who they picked? I got a feeling. And so that said, like, Norm, he didn't take it as anything other than, okay, this is what it is. And he just did the next thing, right? And I just admired him. And so the more I got to know him, I said, Norm, I'm starting a podcast. You would be gold for me. He's like, okay, I'm working a deal. My son wrote a book. There might be a movie. There might be this or might be that. And none of those things ever happened. And so finally he goes, let's do it. And so here's the beauty of him for your listeners to know. He was first, drafted out of high school by what was in the Kansas City A's. They're now the Oakland A's, right? So he's with the Kansas City A's. That's big league ball, and he's a good pitcher. He has a good rookie year, second year, and stuff. But he's starting to notice some things when he comes back, and he's hanging in L.A. And they were like the party central of L.A. Any entertainers or athletes, black athletes that were coming to town, they partied with them. They had their big thing. So he's meeting all these people. Cassius Clay, Aretha Franklin, Red Fox, doesn't matter. All these people are coming, and they're rolling with them. They call themselves the Black Pack. There's about 6, 7 of them, and they're having some fun, right? They're having a good old time. I love that era of Los Angeles, like the 60s. You know, it's like it's I just like all of that. So anyway, so I was real interested in that, but then he starts having these issues where he can't grip the baseball accordingly, right? And eventually he can't grip it hardly at all, and he gets played down to the minors. He's like, man, I'm out of here. So now he goes and he tries out for the Denver Broncos. There's 140 guys try out. He makes the team. He starts first at 50. He's fast. He can guard anybody. But after his first couple games of collision, his body just won't do it. He gets diagnosed finally rheumatoid arthritis and severe. It's so at 25 years old, he's barely a year older than you, Jelani. He's done. No more sports, and he's a bitter man for a long time. He takes a job with late hours at a aerospace industry out in Southern California, but he's able off of there to get his home in Inglewood to raise a family stuff. But he's not a good father. He'll admit that now. He's bitter that he got run out of what he wanted to do. Eventually, through faith, through redemption, what have you, he finds his way back. And one of the vehicles that he finds his way back is he picks up the sport of table tennis, and he gets really good at it. And eventually he goes down to Rogers Parks and he starts playing everybody. And they were playing. They're predominantly like Asian group that was down there playing stuff. So it was a very polite game. He comes in and starts chipping and making all these shots and talking it up and whooping things up. He likes to call it whooping, right? But everybody loves the guy just like everywhere he goes. So they start saying, come travel with our team. And so they start to travel and play in these tournaments. He gets really good. He finds out that he could get diagnosed as a Paralympic athlete. Now he's a Paralympic athlete, although much older than the other Paralympic athletes, and he wins like the national championships. He gets designated, and he goes to the 2000 Olympic Games and wins the bronze medal in Sydney, Australia. That is an unbelievable story.
Yeah, unbelievable. Right?
Yeah. He's like 67 or something, or 65, and he wins. He beats all these younger guys. And he's, as he said, I run the table with those cats. I go, next. Who's up next? I love this guy. So he has this unbelievable life. And then since then, he's continued to teach at his church with young people. He has continued to inspire everybody around him about doing the things. And yet he has dealt with this oncoming rheumatoid arthritis. He's got it to the point where he has to have special diet, medication stuff. But he never gave up, and he's never lost that enthusiasm. So when I convinced him finally to do the podcast, and he said, yeah, we'll do it. We're doing it. He came, and he showed up in his 2000 gear that he had. Badass, man.
Yeah, it was nice.
I like everybody at that restaurant loves him. Like when he walks in, everybody's like, it's like the guy on Cheers back in the 80s. They would go, Norm. The same thing happens to this Norm when he comes to the coffee company.
He said he's been going for it. Yeah, he said he's been going since 2000.
Yeah. So he comes in, and we sat down, and it was brilliant because people got to come by and listen to some of his story that they didn't know. And then by the time we got that out and pushed it out and pushed the clips out, a lot of people have come out of the woodwork to go, whoa, who is this guy, right? And I'm like, man, that's Norm. He's the best. And so I got to sit with them, bring my computer because that's not his world, and sit with them and show him some of it. And he actually looked at me and goes, man, I didn't know you knew what you were doing. This isn't bad. And I was like, yeah, Norm, sorry. How do you give me can you give me a VHS copy of that? I was like, well, not exactly how it works, but I'll hook up your son so he can show it to you. And that's the story of Norm Bass. So I periodically will call him because now with the COVID pandemic out here, the YMCA has been taken out of a lot of these seniors' lives, right? I'm so young enough, I can go and I'll swim in the ocean, but they don't have anywhere to go, right? And so, I call to check in on him. He certainly misses his community and stuff, but he's doing okay. So I'm glad you asked about it. I know I went on forever, but
that was great. Yeah, I made sure I put that question. I wanted to hear more about the story as well, from the little bit that I knew. But yeah, that's a lot of things I guess you could take out of that and learn. Especially me, like you said, he's only 1 year older than me and was taken out of both sports. Just kind of everything taken away. I can understand how that can make someone, upset and a little bit bitter and just feeling like I guess they're a little lost. But the redemption and the perseverance to see and hear that he was able to continue on, find a new sport, continue to have that competitive edge because as athletes,
as an athlete,
it never goes away. You never lose it, at all. It's kind of funny because me and all the other coaches, actually played like our 17 and under last night, and it's like
Yeah.
you can just see it through us. Like
Yep.
that competitive edge never goes away. Like we wanted to.
I did the same thing
pretty much. Yeah. So.
I did it until my players got too close to me, and then I retired undefeated.
Yeah, it's like we always like to stop when we're at the top. Like when we know, I
proved myself. Huh?
Exactly. Yeah. So that was a great story. And so luckily you were able to meet him. You know, he's kind of like in your same neighborhood, and was able to get him on your podcast. And you know, definitely I'll probably be doing a little bit more research on him even more. But that was a wonderful story.
You don't know.
Appreciate you sharing it.
And it's being a good person. I think is so important, Jelani. You know, you're a good person. You meet people. And then you learn a little bit about them, and you never know who you're going to meet. And some of them might not have had that kind of life, but it's still nice to have another friend. Or, you know, you might meet somebody like Norm, and then you go, what the heck? And then you're inspired, you know, and that's part of life. You got to make sure that you're open to.
Exactly. I guess another interesting, interview, kind of checked out. You said it earlier, but your cousin, your cousin is a famous, boxing ring announcer, and know you interviewed him as well. So I want you to see if you could talk about that. Probably was a little bit, well, obviously you knew who he was, so a little bit easier probably to get. A little bit easier one to get. But I guess if you could talk about a little bit about that interview, and then just kind of like maybe some nuggets that he may have told you or taught you about his career. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, it was his uncle that I was originally inspired by as a youngster, because Jimmy Lennon came. Okay, so my family came to Venice in 1915. And the reason they came there, my grandfather, who I never knew, he died when my dad was like 14 or 15 years old. But my grandfather was a great writer and kind of like a little bit of a promoter out of the Midwest. And Thomas Ince, who worked directly for Louis B. Mayer of Metro Goldwyn Mayer, MGM, pulled him out of there to go promote these silent films out on the West Coast in this place called Hollywood. And then we were going to set them up in Venice, where a lot of the Hollywood silent stars had their summer homes. And so that's why my family ended up in Venice. And so that was like 1915 or whatever. So my Uncle Jim, he graduated from Venice High School roughly like 1930. He was like everybody else in the Depression, scrapping to make a living. And one of the things he did was he was a butcher. And when he would deliver the meats. But then he also was good with his linguist. He was a very good linguist. And so he had a good ear. And he found a way, my Uncle Jim, to start to host like a quinceañera, or he would host a wedding, or he would host, a coming out party, whatever it might be. He would host them, and he got better and better. One night, somebody didn't show up for the fights at the Ocean Park Arena. He filled in, and he just did it in his own way. Instead of just gravelly going, this guy and this guy, he said, ladies and gentlemen, ding, ding. Now let me present. And he brought that in. He wore a tuxedo because he was just coming from a wedding reception. Oh, wow. So he brought the tuxedo into the ring. He whooped the whole thing up. Next thing you know, he's at the Olympic Auditorium in downtown Los Angeles, and he becomes the longtime famous voice. But because he was Hollywood located, he was picked up for all of television and film. He was in one of the Rocky movies. I got an action figure over there, right? So that said, his son came up, and I was about Jamie's age, which I call Jamie, who's Jimmy Jr. But Jamie eventually learned what I knew about Jamie when I was growing up. He could play classical piano. And so I have some older cousins. They're called the Lennon sisters. You should know who they are. Your grandparents might. They used to be on the Lawrence Welk show. They were very famous for a while, but they would sing. My uncles would sing. My other cousins could sing. Everybody could perform. He'd get up and blow us all blow us out of the water with this. That's how I knew him. But eventually he learned his father's trade, and his father brought him along just right. And so as his father, my Uncle Jim, moved out, Jimmy Jr. moved in, and he started, and he has taken that game further than anything. He was there for the Buster Douglas fight that beat Tyson. He was there, the night Tupac was shot in Las Vegas. He announced that fight of Tyson and was with the governor of Nevada in a restaurant right out off that street. I mean, he was there at Julio Cesar Chavez in Mexico City, 135,000 people in Estadio Azteca. I mean, crazy. He's been at these cultural touch points of all of these places, these big fights. He was just at the Wilder, Deontay Wilder fight. So he does all of these big fights, and he's there in that moment. And so it was so cool to be like, he's my cousin.
Yep.
And then we're talking about all of these, these massive moments that we all can kind of go, wow, yeah, I know where I went.
Yeah. That's incredible. Like you said,
yeah.
He's been pretty much everywhere. He's announced some of the biggest fights ever.
Yep.
So I know, like, that's pretty cool. Like you said, yeah, that's my cousin. Like, kind of know him more personally than, of course, most people know.
He'll text with us on like a text chain, like right up into, after the weigh-in and through, and then we'll all gather and watch the fight somewhere. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Is he I guess ever talking about? I don't even know if it's a question that you might have asked. Like, does he like practice like that? Like, that intro, like that, but like, does he have to do voice exercises, kind of like maybe like singers or artists may do? Like, what's that like? If you know,
that's a good. I mean, that's the question I asked too.
Yeah.
Is and he was like, I just kind of take care of it. That was his answer. He's like, sure, sometimes lemon tea. That kind of, he goes, for the most part, I just kind of take care of myself and try to be prepared. So there was nothing, because I have my other cousins that are singers and stuff. They have their own regimens.
Yep.
Him not as much, but he does put a lot of pressure on himself to be correct always. Right. His uncle, my uncle, his father taught me. There's the 3 C's of PA announcing, right? A public address announcing: concise, clear, and correct. Always those 3 things, right? Keep it short, be clear, be right. Like, don't, you can't make that mistake. Nobody can go back on TV. People go back on TV and do things. They can't do it when you're live. And he puts a lot of pressure on himself to make sure he's got everybody's names announced right. He's gonna identify all the sponsors, all the everybody else. Like, he's big on that. So I know that part of it. And then, he's always impeccably dressed. And when Michael Buffer came across that "Let's Get Ready to Rumble" stuff, he slowly worked into the "It's showtime," and all the lights go off and they come back up, and so that's his shtick. So he knows it's showtime, and he said, fires me up, but I stay on point. I make sure I get everything right.
Yep, it's showtime. It's legendary. Everybody knows
everybody knows that
Rumble, but the show, that's really, really cool. Yeah, I know you also wanted to touch on the passing of Gail Sear. Sorry about that.
Gail Sayers,
Gail Sayers. You've had a chance to interview him before?
No, I haven't. But I will be interviewing Jeff Pearlman, who was a senior writer for Sports Illustrated. In addition to just doing this book.
Yeah, but he just had a book. Yeah.
The 3-Ring Circus, right? Yep. So Pearlman's going to come on the show next Friday. It's going to be great to talk because I have some good insights about Kobe, Jerry West, and that kind of stuff. But going back to Gail Sayers, so he's this great running back in the early 70s for the Chicago Bears, right? He's from Kansas. He was known as the Kansas Comet. When he came out, he was Rookie of the Year. He's in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the great 100 players named. The whole thing. And he also had this really cool relationship with a guy on the team named Brian Piccolo. Brian Piccolo was also a pretty good running back out of Wake Forest, and they struck up a friendship. But George Halas, the coach of the Bears at that time, wanted to change how they did rooming. They used to segregate rooming on a lot of the NFL teams, but they wanted to put position guys in the same rooms. And so they were one of the first ones. That was Piccolo and Gail Sayers, and they were put into the same room or whatever. And so that made some news. But the fact of the matter was they were buddies. They had a good time. And eventually this movie was made about them called Brian's Song. And now Brian's Song, those of us of my age certainly remember it, and it kind of lives on a little bit here and there. But it had some famous people in it, but like Billy D. Williams, like very cool dude. If you look up Billy D. Williams, he was the man. He was very cool. He played Gail Sayers. And James Caan, who was Sonny in The Godfather, he's an elf too. Anyway. He played James. He played Brian Piccolo. They had this great relationship. Now, Gail Sayers tears up his leg. Piccolo helps him rehab it, but Piccolo gets I forget the disease he had. It might have just been cancer. I'm sorry, I don't remember. And he dies, and it's really sad how he died. It struck down in his prime. That said, I'm 7-year-old watching this ABC movie of the week, and I'm crying. And I didn't think it was okay to cry at a movie. I'm 7 years old. But it's a sports movie, which got my attention. It's this, and I was like, what? And I just it. So it had such a profound impact on me. So today, most of the day, I'm sending out clips on my social media of that movie, but also trying to do what I do, Jelani, which is put historical and social context around important sports stories that should lift us all up. Because Gale Sayers was a good man. He spent a lot of his time for civil rights and human rights projects. He always gave of himself as a post NFL athlete, and so I'd like to celebrate him, as much as I can. And so I'm glad you asked me about him.
Exactly, yeah. And it's been unfortunate. We lost a lot of sports figures this year that have meant a lot to not only the sports but the different communities that they're in as well. Of course, you being in Los Angeles, Kobe Bryant for
that
one.
Helps. Kobe.
Yeah, kind of like I didn't actually have this written down, kind of just off the fly, but kind of like your thoughts on like kind of like what it had, or when you found out it happened, like maybe kind of like what you were doing, and just like I guess your feelings today about it, because it's kind of it's always like being out there, always on our minds.
Of course,
especially you being in Los Angeles, though I know it's probably like definitely surrounded by it a lot.
Yeah, no, I never, I've met my share of people. I never had an opportunity to meet Kobe in person. I've been in the same kind of area as him, never got to meet him in person, but he certainly had an impact on my life. Yeah. Okay, he was my son's favorite, right? But, it's interesting to dive into Kobe's life and where I was, what's really interesting is one of the interesting that's personal to me is, okay, my boy growing up, Kobe was his guy. My boy was born in 92. So by the time he's like 8 years old, Kobe wins his first championship, right? Yeah. But we actually, my son went to the Forum before they moved to the Staples Center with me to see Shaq and Kobe play, because I knew this was on the come. And I remember he was on my shoulders, and Shaq came by and was bigger than both of us. And he was like, "Dad, is he human? Like, what the heck?" He loved him some Kobe. And so we're at the Staples Center. And he said, my son's only 8 or 9 years old. He's got his Kobe jersey on. We're up at the top, Staples Center. We're there. He's like, "Dad, he's going to do a 360. I go, "Vaughn, NBA players just don't break out 360s. Like, not like that." He goes, "But he can do it." I know he can. He's not going to. Okay. So then the drapes drop and they do the introductions and they show Kobe do a 360. He goes, "I told you he could do it." I said, "I know he can do it. He's not going to." He did it. Jelani, he picked the ball and did a 360. Now, can you imagine what kind of fan my son is?
Yeah, I'm only imagine. Yep.
What did I say? Yeah. So he is huge Kobe. My wife and I would sit in that, not far from where I am, and scream at the television when the Lakers were losing, "Save us, Kobe, save us." He would, man. He would always come through for us, right? Yeah. So the day he died was my son's birthday. I was getting ready to call my son on his, I think would have been his 27th birthday. Yeah. And or 28th birthday. And I was looking at my phone and there it comes through. Yeah. And I was like, wow. So obviously that was a thing. And then I had just about a week before interviewed Chris McGee, who is the Lakers studio host, and he's pretty close to Kobe. And so now I'm looking on television, and there's a guy I just sat down with that's a longtime friend of mine anchoring our city's morning of Kobe. So we were fortunate that we then got a chance to go to LA Live and be part of that whole scene that evolved there as a tribute. And then I got fortunate enough to go to the memorial, sat right there, front and center. Yeah. I mean, there's Beyonce and Alicia Keys. Yeah, everyone. Sabrina Ionescu was so powerful, and then that night she goes and sets the all-time record for triple doubles and clinches a Pac-12. I mean, there was so much that went into that day. Shaq, Jordan, everybody that was there. It was really an unbelievable moment from LA. There's a guy out here. His name's Walter Thompson Hernandez. He went to Venice High School. Played a little pro ball overseas, but he's been writing for the New York Times for a long time. Recently listened to his podcast. He says LA does two things really well. We mourn together, and we celebrate our championships and our mournings really well. Yep. He goes, look at like the 92 riots. Look at the most recent civil unrest. Like LA can do that like anybody. Yeah. But we also celebrate our championships together, and we celebrated Kobe together. And so it was a time of mourning his death, but also of celebrating what unites us in the city. Exactly. And so that's why Kobe, always means something to the city, even though, Jelani's got a really interesting situation because he came from a prep school in Philadelphia. Yeah. And best ball was played in the public schools in Philly, right? But his dad had played pro ball, Jelly Bean. Yep. So Jelly Bean knew Sonny Vaccaro. And Sonny Vaccaro, who was running the whole game of the emerging game of whether it was Nike, Adidas, whatever it was, ran that ABCD camp. Yeah. And so that only identified like the top 120 players or something like that. And Kobe really wasn't that highly regarded because he played in the prep league in Philly. Yeah. the jelly bean got him in with Sonny, and he got him to that legendary ABCD camp, and Kobe dominated, which allowed Kobe to make the leap to be a professional.
Exactly.
And that's Jeff Pearlman tells that in this book. He tells that story, and he also talks about how Del Harris, before Phil, was the coach, and how he was a good coach for Kobe when he first got here because he was chill. He was like, he had studied to be like, he might have even been in the seminary, but he was like kind of like a religious kind of guy that was real chill, and he allowed Kobe to be himself. He wasn't, Del Harris wasn't a great coach for Shaq, but he was a good coach for an emerging Kobe, right? And so, anyways, all of that story is unbelievable. And then Jerry West, identifying from 2 miles from where I'm sitting right now is the Inglewood YMCA, and that's where Jerry West watched him. And 30 minutes in was like, I'm out. Got on the phone, so right? So it's kind of cool, man. And then Jeff, and I'll just tell you the power. And I got to show this again because I got to show you the power of what you're doing, Jelani. Is if I direct messaged Jeff Pearlman 7 months ago, he might have just ignored it. But he looked at our content, and he looked at things like you've already asked me about, and he liked what he saw. And within 15 minutes, he said, "Sure, I'll come on your show." He's going on Colin Cowherd. He's going on ESPN. He's going on Get Up. All of that. He's going to come on my show. But I think he looked and he realized, like, all right, dude, you're doing the work. Yeah, I'm down. And so we're stoked, man. This guy, 10 times New York Times bestselling author, and he's putting out about my Lakers. And let's go. Like, I'm fired up. I can't wait to talk to this guy about all that.
Yeah, and I'll definitely be tuned in when you have him on, or whenever you guys post up the episode as well.
Live a week from tomorrow.
Oh, okay, cool. Live a week from tomorrow. Okay, live. Everybody hears it now. Live next Friday.
It's YouTube.com, and then it's SSDL, right? YouTube.com SSDL. We always go live at 5 on Wednesdays and live at 5 on Fridays. That's Pacific time. And so Wednesdays is like our Preps to Olympians show. We put the folks in high school all the way to Olympic athletes. And then Friday is kind of like a Tonight Show. It could be just like kind of heavy hitter, or even like somebody tomorrow night. I'm having on the muralist from Los Angeles. His name is Jonas Never, and he's done all the sports murals throughout our city. A great one to Kobe that they showed when Kobe died, right? And he just did a recent one of Joe Kelly making a happy face at the Houston Astros. Like that. He just did that one. So he's a friend of us. Of our show, and so we're going to celebrate his work tomorrow night on our show, and that should be a good one. So hopefully people want to jump on tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. I think I will be one, because that's another thing too. You guys do. There's a lot of artists. People go there, of course, fulfill their dreams, and there's a lot of great murals out there as well. So I'll definitely be tuned in and want to see that one. I haven't seen the Joe Kelly one yet, but that's definitely going to be a segment spot in, I guess, sports history, because I hate the Astros. I'm sure you probably feel the same way.
Come on, man! Like, I'll never. They're not going to leave. And what's crazy is the Dodgers got that pulled on them back in 51 when Bobby Thompson hit that famous home run when the Dodgers were in Brooklyn, right? But it was a similar thing. They were out in the Polo Grounds where the big scoreboard was, or whatever, back in the day, and they were in the manager's office opening and closing a window for fastball or off speed. So the Dodgers got cheated out of that pennant, and they get cheated out of the World Series. Come on, man.
Yeah, it's like it's been a few that you guys should have had that you've been cheated out of, and it's unfortunate. But this year might be the year.
Should be. I'm worried about that 2 out of 3 series, because can bump you out. But we've clearly proved ourselves to be, I think, the best team in baseball.
Yeah, I guess going off that too, I wanted to get into the sports world nowadays. You go with LA, you guys got a lot of great teams that's up and coming. One, of course, the Lakers right now, they're 2 games away from the NBA Finals. Like we just said, I think the Dodgers are still first place and looking for that championship that got stolen from them. And even, was it the King? I don't know if you follow hockey. I rarely follow, but I think the Kings won they won it was
a while ago.
Yeah, about 2-3 years ago. Something like that. But it's like.
But they had theirs. But and the Kings have a great history here. But the joke here is that the Forum where they played used to hold 17,505 people, and the joke was there's 17,505 hockey fans in LA, like, because they could never get TV ratings, right? It was hard for Southern California to like all of us to get our mind around a sport on ice.
Yeah.
It took the Wayne Gretzky trade, and that revolutionized everything.
Right?
That changed everything. And so once that happened, then you got a wider base, and yeah, they definitely have brought home the Stanley Cup a couple times, and they celebrate with it at all the bars not far from here in the South Bay. They go all the way through there, like a Manhattan Beach and Hermosa Beach. They take the cup with them, so it's pretty cool. It's like, this area, they embrace them a lot. But yeah, I was at the Lakers when they won in 1983. The 85 team. When they won, I was there in the 83 team, 85 team. I went to one of the games. So I was there for a Dodgers World Series game. So I've been in those venues at that time, and it's awesome. We do celebrate our champions well out here. And so, yeah, come on, LeBron, let's do this.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Obviously, I'm sure you're LA fan. I think there's I didn't put it. That was the background picture. There was one. I think it was the profile picture before this started, but you had the Lakers shirt on. So, of course, like, I guess what are your predictions? Do you see them? Obviously, I see them as well pulling out this series, but what I guess the amount of games do you think it would take for this, and if they go on to the championship, how many games do you think you'll seal it in?
Series are interesting. The series can be really interesting. I mean, the fact is, AD hits that shot to win game 2.
Yeah.
Now, if he doesn't hit that shot, it's 1-1.
Yep.
And that very well could have happened. And then we could be looking at 2-1 since Denver came back strong. And now the narrative is entirely different than us being up 2-1. So some of the things about Lakers were exposed. And that was too many turnovers sometimes, a little bit careless with the ball. And also, Jokic, he presents a problem. You have to deal with that problem. He can play. There's no doubt about it. But that kind of size and the way he leans on you and the way he gets his shots is really interesting. So tonight, obviously, it's going to be huge. But if LeBron comes out a little pissed off that he didn't get enough MVP votes, that'll be a good start. And then AD will finish him. And so that'll make it 3-1. I think Denver will then have to just kind of roll over, and we'll get in there in 5. Now, that said, the Heat look really good.
Yeah.
Most of us would prefer to put a beat down on the Celtics in the finals because we owe them a lot. Yeah. Like, we beat them once in the finals, and they got on us too many times, right? Yeah. They tortured my boy Jerry West for years. That wasn't right. And so we need more payback on them. Now, that said, the Miami Heat also present an interesting narrative in that you got Pat Riley, the team president, that made his name with the Lakers, right? Yep. He was a Lakers sub. Then he was assistant coach for Jerry West before he was Chick Hearn's sidekick, our legendary announcer. And he went from the booth to court.
Yeah.
And then the Showtime Lakers. So Pat Riley's got an interesting history there. Yeah. And so that's a thing. And then Butler, he's a baller.
Yep.
And he looks an awful lot like Jamie Foxx, who is a Hollywood guy. Yeah. So I mean, there's that.
Who would you
Hollywood to take us down?
Who would you rather face? I guess because what the narrative. I've talked with a few other guys, just basketball talk in general, and the one thing they were saying was like, no matter which two they face, like these two teams, like they play tough and they play hard at all times, like for the full 48 minutes. But there's sometimes with the Lakers, they get a little lax. Like they have great runs where they're running. But there's times where they kind of get down themselves. If someone doesn't rotate on defense, they're kind of looking at each other and, just not that same momentum, that same tempo. They don't play as hard the whole 48 minutes. So out of the two teams that's coming out of the East, which ones would you rather they face? And what do you think they would need to do in order to, make it a quick and easy series to wrap up another championship for LA?
I'm not sure if it's going to be quick and easy because both teams are really strong and both teams commit on defense.
Yeah.
That's always going to extend the series. But I kind of, it's a toss up. Here's what I'd say. I'd rather face Boston because I think Boston's down 3-1 now, right?
Yep. Down 3-1. They lost last night.
Yeah, they lost last night. So they're down 3-1, which would mean they'd have to win 3 to go 7 to be more exhausted to get there. Yep. So that would be my preference at this point.
Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, because with the Heat, I think regardless, I think LA is coming out with a championship. I think you guys they just had that chip on their shoulder. They have that edge, and they got Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, on their side.
Right. That's right.
Like it's just a lot of things that we're just seeing, even with the 80 shot the other day. It's just like that's like a Kobe type moment.
I thought so too. Kobe moment, and it would be number 17 for the franchise, which would tie Boston Celtics for the most,
Celtics,
which would be a tribute in it, of course, to Kobe as well, who also beat them in 2010 in the Ron Artest game.
Exactly.
And so I'd like that. I'd like that.
Yep. I think, it's just kind of all lined up for them. But if there is one thing that is scary, like I said, that Miami Heat shooting.
I know.
They're hot. And like with the Lakers, it's just like I said before, it's like kind of like up and down. When they're shooting and making shots and playing on one accord, they're great. Like no one's going to stop them.
And
they remind Miami Heat shooting is.
It is. But they also, the Lakers this year, and I'd like, besides being a Laker fan and want to see them win a championship, it also hopefully will remind people that it doesn't have to be a Golden State Warriors hit all the threes to get a championship these days.
Yep.
The three is certainly taking on a much bigger role in the game. So whether you have stretch centers, used to be a call to center, right? But those stretch fives, stretch fours, fine. That's okay. The game evolves. However, let's not ignore the fact that when AD is scoring close to the hoop, let alone, Dwight's getting those lobs, and LeBron cannot be stopped when he wants to go to the basket.
Exactly.
The 2-point field goal still has its place with a
very
good
much so.
percentage, and it shouldn't be overlooked at the expense of evolving with the three. And so that said, I think the Lakers could send that message to the league, like, hey, big guys still mean something here.
Yep.
And, being strong and finishing at the basket means something.
Yeah, because they are the biggest team, of course, still in it. Nuggets just have Nikolai.
I like the way McGee and White and AD. Yeah, I like the way they work
that
together.
defensive presence that all 7-footers, and it's just hard to compete with. Yep. So
it's long, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, hopefully, I'm a LeBron guy. I was also a Kobe guy, but I'm a real big on LeBron. So I'm hoping they're able to pull it out and bring you guys another championship. It just seems like it's all lined up for that to happen.
We covered where his son goes to school, Sierra Canyon.
Oh yeah,
right. And so we did a story with their athletic director and covered some of their sports, not just basketball, but girls soccer, some other ones. We got all that B-roll. But when we went to go do their game, they can't even play their game on campus. They have to move it to the college because they get so many people for their boys basketball games because there's so many heavy hitting. They
had everybody there. Yeah,
everybody goes, and then everybody's just looking at the door, wondering if LeBron's going to roll in.
Exactly.
It's really an interesting dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah, and Dwayne, I guess, at a point too, because Zaire Wade played with them.
Yeah.
Kid that played not too far from where I live right now, Brendan Boston. I know he transferred over there.
Boston,
everybody was there to watch it. Yeah,
very good.
Was Zaire Williams as well? You guys just had a bunch of talent, and they won the state championship too, right?
Yep, they've won several, and not only in basketball, but girls basketball. They're a power. Boys football, they're going to be an open division competitor this year. They won D1 last year. I mean, you go up and down their sports line, and that's why I went with my boy. He's a friend of mine, Rock Pillsbury. He's the athletic director there, and that to me was the interesting part of the story. Was like, how do you build this overall program out there in Chatsworth? Like, man, when I grew up, what I knew about Chatsworth is that's where the Manson family was housed up before they started killing people.
Yep.
Right? Like that's where that's what I knew about Chatsworth. But the fact of the matter is, it's in a position now where the 101 freeway comes through and it connects to the entertainment industry, and it's a good place to live because there's somewhat affordable property out that way. And so it was really interesting to hear how he made his journey, originally starting in Texas and then out here, and now I argue that's the strongest high school program in the nation. I don't think anybody else can step to them, boys and girls sports all combined. Like they've won several state and then section titles. Our section out here, CIF Southern Section, 600 schools. That's 600 schools in just the section, and there's 10 sections in the state.
That's
right.
Crazy.
So that said, they've won several state titles. I think it might even be up to double digits within the last.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
That's a lot. That's a lot. And that's spread out across different sports. So, I think it's an unbelievable story that school out there.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't doubt it. Like I said, you guys definitely always have a lot of good athletes coming in and out of that place for sure.
No doubt. Yeah, we do.
There's right before I guess we head off. I definitely enjoyed our conversation today. I always love to play a game with my guests before we hop off. And the one that I typically play a lot is called Top 3. I just ask a question, and then of course you just name your top 3, whether you want to do it in order or not. Whatever that top 3 may be. So
sounds good.
My first one is top 3 favorite professional sports teams. Your professional sports teams.
Gonna have to go Lakers, Dodgers, Rams.
In order?
Gyro.
Is it in order? That 1, 2, 3, or 3, 2, 1?
I think that would be. I mean, I love me some football. Playing, that's probably my favorite sport I ever coached. And playing football was probably the most fun I had in a game. But if you ask me what's really in my blood the most, I would have to say basketball, which puts my Lakers number one. And I coach high school baseball, and I love the sport of baseball and enjoy it. But I think the LA Dodgers mean so much to our community. You know, close to 4 million fans a year visit Dodger Stadium. And we have Vince Scully that just retired, and there's and then the whole story of Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier back there, but then they come out west and they're the first out in the west. I think it's such a great story, right? Well, you know, and I love the Rams too, and we'll be back this year. We'll be back in the Super Bowl.
I was just about to ask a Rams prediction real quick before the next one. I was going to ask a Rams prediction. Would think you're going to win the division?
I do think we'll win the division, and it's not an easy division, man.
At all.
So San Francisco.
Wilson is.
Look at Arizona. Right now, like,
they're playing really good too. I forgot about them. Yeah.
He's really good, and Arizona looks good. So it's not an easy division, but I do think we'll win the division. I do think they look like they got what they were missing last year was offensive linemen. They had both to retirement, to trade, and to defection or whatever. They lost some key offensive linemen, and that's why we looked okay last year. We look a lot better this year because the line has been reestablished. And so that's where McVay's offense can operate. Got a good combo at running back. I think we're good. I think we're good. I think we're back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, definitely have surprised me these first two games coming out. I was, I think I beat Washington last week, so I was expecting that to be a win. But y'all did look really, really good against the Cowboys Sunday night, that first game. So like you said, pretty much if not winning the division, y'all probably definitely got a playoff spot in the future because even though the NFC is pretty stout, y'all been looking really, really good. As long as everyone's able to stay healthy, I think you guys should be fine. Jared Goff looks a lot better from last year.
We need another shot at that Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, you and my team, but my team's probably not going to get there anytime soon, especially after what we just did this past Sunday. I'm a Falcons fan. So.
I know that hurt with Dallas coming back on you like that.
It was definitely a tough pill to swallow throughout.
Yeah, it was. You just fall on the ball, man. You fall on when you're in kickoff return, you do not have to wait for it to go 10 yards.
Exactly.
You could. It could. There it is. Take it. Fall on that game.
Actually talked about it.
They were like, "Oh, it's gotta go 10." I was like, "No."
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I don't know. They called a timeout before, the kickoff, and I was just like, I knew something was gonna happen. Like something dumb was gonna happen. Ball wasn't gonna bounce the right way. It's like you're calling a timeout before a kickoff or onside kickoff. Is like somebody doesn't know something. Yeah, something's gonna go wrong. So I was like, we probably lost the game. But my fault. Let me get back on track with the top three. Top three. I wanted to ask top three. I guess top three favorite guests so far on your podcast.
It's a good question. Well, Norm Bass is probably going to take that number one slot. Love me some Norm Bass. Because I'm grew up in volleyball and because women's volleyball really had the nation's attention. But Karch Kiraly, who is like the Michael Jordan of volleyball, would probably be my second favorite. He's really got a fascinating story. It's a 5-parter we put out. But he was the greatest player. He's the only player ever to win 2 gold medals, Olympic gold medals, indoor, and then another one on the beach. He's got the all-time amount of beach tournament wins. And he was such an unbelievable great player, but he was a great athlete. You see, he was on Superstars, and that pitted like top athletes from everything. And on Superstars, he should have won first place if Gastineau wasn't on steroids running him down 100 meters. And he called him out on that, but he should have won that. He took a solid second, and it showed that there's great athletes in volley. So he took that, and now he took that, and plus, unfortunately, I got to travel with him a little bit, promoting the sport of beach volleyball, right? But then he's now our women's Olympic team coach, and he's taken them to further than any other coach. So his stamp on the sport of volleyball has been, it's just incredible, and his life story. His father took up arms in the Hungarian Revolution against the Russians, and that's how he left that country to start a new life. He left Hungary to come out here. And they eventually settled in Santa Barbara, and that's where Karch grew up. And so that backstory combined with what Karch has achieved to the point where finally Karch 92, because 84, they won the gold men's volleyball, but the Russians didn't come. 88, everybody shows up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody shows up in 88, and Karch wins that gold against the Russians. And guess who's the loudest guy cheering? Laszlo, who took up arms against them in the Hungarian Revolution. That's the backstory.
Yep.
The rest of it. That's why he's probably number 2. And then, number 3 is not an easy answer. There's actually, because I do both sit-down video podcasts where we sit down and then post-produce, and we do live ones. So I feel like I pick one from the live.
Yeah.
And the one I'm going to pick, I think is really interesting, is because of its interest level. It's Gary Gilliam. Now, Gary Gilliam played for Seattle Seahawks, and he got that big catch when the Seahawks got to the Super Bowl. Remember the year when Pete Carroll threw the ball against the Patriots?
That one,
that year, right? Yeah. But I love it. Gary Gilliam scored because they were playing the Packers, and he did a double-click discount. Right? And so he threw that one out. But what he has done is he came up in Pennsylvania, and Milton Hershey of Hershey's Chocolate had set up this private school with an awful lot of money. They endowed them for centuries to come. 100 acres, beautiful. It's called, I think, the Milton Hershey School. Gary Gilliam, and it reaches out to kids who need a chance. Families apply, and they get in. And they coach them up, man. They coach them up, and they teach them up. And Gilliam came out of there, went to Penn State, and he went to Penn State right on the backside of the Joe Paterno scandal, where Joe Paterno had to down Sandusky, right? So, but he was one of the guys who stayed with Bill O'Brien, and he kept them afloat and turned them back, right? And then from there, he goes off to a professional career, and he's used everything that's been given to him and everything he has worked for. So he is now he's starting in Hershey, in another city in Pennsylvania, and he's going to go city to city to redistribute wealth by way of taking old areas of cities and flipping them so that they'll become sustainable environments that allow underserved populations to achieve.
That's great.
That's a goal, dude. Yeah. Me and you got a podcast.
Yeah.
That will change the structure of our economics.
That's amazing.
Right? Yeah. So that I put that guy at number 3.
That's amazing. Great work. I would hopefully one day maybe aspire to be able to do something like that as well somewhere here in my hometown.
He's a very inspirational guy.
Yeah. All right. Top three favorite sports moments, like your favorite sports moments, like I guess your playing time.
All right. So hard to pass up on the Kirk Gibson home run, 1988 Game 1 World Series. I was a high school football coach. I'm coaching this game out in Burbank, not far from Dodger Stadium. It's halftime. And in 88, it was pretty cool if you had a portable television. So I'm the JV coach, but for the varsity games, I got to be up in the tower, helping call with the OC. And the OC has got, and I look out into the stands, and out in the stands, somebody else is also got a television. And I look out into the parking lot from my vantage point where I'm up high, and out in the parking lot, people are gathered around a car also watching. So there's these 3 groups. My varsity football coach rattles our cage to go, hey, pay attention to the game. We're like, okay. But earlier in the game, Canseco had hit that grand slam. And now the Dodgers have clawed their way back. And even Vin Scully said, it doesn't look like Kirk Gibson's going to make it tonight. And here comes Kirk out. And we're watching on this TV. And Dodger Stadium is going absolutely crazy. And you can hear the murmur in different areas of this high school football game.
Oh, wow.
You can just see people kind of like gathering around the televisions. And all of a sudden, it's a deep drive into right field. She is gone. We almost fell off of our
tower.
Those stands went crazy, and the parking lot went crazy. Right? And everybody all the high school football players were looking around like, what happened? There wasn't any day of social media or anything like that. So that LA moment was really cool, and it still stands as like the number 1 moment ever are. So it's hard to like bypass that one. I'd say number 2 would probably be, I guess that would be 1985 Magic Johnson Junior Skyhook in the Boston Garden. Right? When he busts out Kareem Skyhook. I mean, I could show you a picture that we use as one of my logos of me as an 8-year-old, and I'm supposed to go to my first Holy Communion, Jelani, but I got my pajamas on in my backyard with sweatbands, right? And because I got to make 10 straight skyhooks before I would allow myself to go receive a sacrament from the Holy Church.
Oh,
now, that said, my mom goes, I can't convince this boy. So she takes the picture. That's my love, right? Because that's how much I love sports.
That's pretty cool.
And so the junior skyhook was magic, busting that off to exercise the curse of the Celtics. Love that moment. Number 3. I don't know. It's not easy, but I must say the fact that my Rams left me and then came back. And then Zerline kicked like a 60-yarder to send the Rams after, remember, that pass interference. Whatever.
Not pass interference at all.
Hey, the Astros banged on trash cans. Things happen. So he kicked like a 60-yarder, and I just was watching that ball with my wife, and I was like, it's going to go. It's going to, and it went through. And I was like, shit, we're going back to the Super Bowl. I was like, oh. So that stands out in my mind right now. Now, obviously bypassing a lot of other moments, but and this time I go Dodger, Laker, Ram.
It's kind of thing. I forgot Zerline wasn't kicking for you guys anymore. And when he came out for the Cowboys Sunday, I was like, yeah, game's over for sure. It don't even matter where they got in that. They got in like 1 10-yard play. I was like, yeah,
got a leg, man. That guy can send it. Yeah, he can. Yes, he does. So those would probably be my threat to throw. I had to get one that wasn't in the 1980s.
Yeah. All right, and the last one I would say, I guess your top 3, I guess, like personal moments of you playing sports, like ones that you may remember, your top 3 moments, like, you know, winning MVP or, you know, winning certain type of championship, any of that.
Well, number 1 always will be.
You got
my 1986 Venice Backyard Championship, first place trophy, the greatest team ever. Shout out to my cousin Tony Lennon, who was on my team with me. Now, the reason I say that is because I've also showed that award to World Series winner Tim Leary, world middleweight champion Boom Boom Mancini. He showed me his belt. I showed my trophy. Showing off his ring. I showed that trophy. So that's got to be my top one. I would say, all right, I set a record that'll probably never be broken. At high school, I played football, basketball, and volleyball. And the reason this one won't be broken is because in volleyball, back in that time, you only played to 15, and it was called side-out scoring. It wasn't like a point-free play, right? And I served all 15 of this one game. Now, it doesn't matter how terrible the other team was. What matters, I served all 15.
15, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that one's still standing. And the third, I would probably say, was the last time I played my son in one-on-one basketball. I beat him, right? And I just want to leave it at that. Now, does it matter that he was 13 years old? No, it does not matter. It matters that I beat him, and then I retired at that point.
Exactly. What matters is just the facts of what happened. Like, it happened.
It happened.
So it's like it doesn't matter about any details.
That's right.
Come along with it. So.
And I'm overlooking a lot of backgammon championships that I won. Right?
You play backgammon?
Oh, a lot of backgammon. So I'm overlooking those to go to that. You know, beating my son Vaughn when he was 13 in basketball.
That was definitely personal. It was a prideful thing. Yep. My dad probably still thinks he can beat me, but he has a height advantage. But other than that, I don't think. I don't think he has anything else on me. So.
I would not take on a 24-year-old.
Oh man! Again, I really, really enjoyed our conversation. Really appreciate you for coming on today and dealing with me through all the technical issues I was having. Realized, of course, it was me all along. Like I said, unfortunately, it happened, but I was able to get it done, on my phone and everything. So appreciate you for sticking with me.
Rudy Tomjanovich hung in with me. We had similar issues with Rudy Tomjanovich. And he hung in with me. He had no reason to do that because, he's Rudy Tomjanovich, Hall of Famer, right? Yep. And so we do, and we do the best. Jelani, you're going to be in a position at some point where you're here hitting big, and you're going to be somebody else is going to have a problem on the other side that you're going to help. That's what we all do, man. We all help each other.
I guess like you said, it's technology. It works when it works, and you just got to roll with the punches. Luckily, like I said, got it done. But before we head off, of course, I want you to share, your social medias where everyone can find you, find your podcast, the things that you write, everything. And then also any maybe words of wisdom for someone that either wants to start their own podcast, want to go into coaching, or just needs uplifting word at all. So.
I love it, buddy. Well, that's my Twitter handle right there is @SportsStoriesDL. That's also my website. So you can find everything from our website, sportsstoriesdl.com. And that's where you find us, youtube.com, and then SSDL. So that's like Sports Stories Denny Lennon. So you can find everything via that. And we appreciate any and all support there. I would say, you know, I don't think you can have a successful day without doing for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And if you think about that, I learned that from Coach Wooden. Until you do something that's uncalled for, mm-hmm. You're right. That isn't that you do something kind for somebody else. And if we all, you know, kind of do that, you'll find out that good comes back around. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going to help you build whatever business you're getting after. Is putting the kindness out there, trying to do for others is going to help build what you want to build. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I would say. And second, Coach Wooden always says, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So put the work in, it'll get done.
Yes, sir. I love that. Love that quote. Like I said, on that note, again, appreciate Mr. Denny Lennon for hopping on with us today. Great conversation. You guys know where to find me, and of course, Twitter with the game or WTGMTM podcast, and then of course everything else. This live stream will be on Twitter, YouTube, and my Facebook page. What the game means to me as well. So, thank you again, Mr. Lennon, and hope you guys. Hope you have a good day. Hope you guys are able to pull it out tonight. Push it to 3-1 as well.
We'll do it. Yes, thanks,
sure.
Lonnie.
Of course. That does it for another episode of What the Game Means to Me. Have a good day, everybody.
Cool.
All right.